Position or that Bush brand with the establishment of the Republican Party. To go in depth on this, we're joined live from Los Angeles by our good friend Michael Reagan. You can follow Michael in a good way at Twitter with his Twitter handle at Reagan World. So, Michael, there's Jeb Bush. Does his entrance into this basically mean curtains for Chris Christie?
Well, let me start here. I know how tough it is to get out of a shadow. I mean, the shadow of Ronald Reagan, you introduced me as the 40th son of the 40th president of the United States, but nobody knows about my history, what I've done, because you're so overshadowed by iconic family. And he's also overshadowed in many ways. You don't hear about him being a great governor of Florida. Leave that by the side for a moment, back to your question. Yeah, it puts Christie in a bad light, and I'll tell you why. Exactly what my daughter Ashley says to me. We had this discussion last night. The reason Jeb Bush puts Christie in the background is because Jeb Bush is more likable. Jeb Bush is more relatable. And if you're somebody who's going to give money to a campaign, you want to give money to somebody who's likable and relatable more than somebody who is not as likable and relatable, because that likable person has a better shot at winning the nomination and winning the presidency than someone who isn't. Like I said last week on the show with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton will never be likable. Bill Clinton will always be likable.
But will he be able to distance himself from his family?
Well, I wouldn't have given that speech that he gave because it makes people ask that question. If you want to get away from the shadow, you need to walk away from it and talk about what you've accomplished and what have you, because he's accomplished a heck of a lot as governor of Florida, as a father, and what have you. So I wouldn't have given that speech in that way or said something of that nature. It's going to be very tough for him to do that. I think the biggest negative he has is the fact that his last name is Bush. Not that it should be, but it is, because I think people could be tired of the Bush family name.
With the 2 minutes remaining in this segment, we'll go from the political version of All in the Family to the real-life exploits of Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York. The statement he made about President Obama not having great love for this country. Was that a mistake?
Well, I think the choice of words could have been a lot better. I think Obama wakes up every morning blaming America for every ill in the world. Now, I don't know, what words you want to put on. Giuliani put his own words on, but that's how I look at it. I think he begins every conversation with what was America's fault in this, just like he just had this meeting in Washington, D.C. The fact of the matter, he doesn't come to the realization that America is that shining city. The world looks to America for leadership. When we don't lead, the world falls apart. And guess what? The world is falling apart. I'm not going to get on Giuliani for saying Barack Obama doesn't love America, but I'll tell you one thing. I don't think he likes it very much.
So do you think he's a patriot?
No.
Why not? Because of what you just said?
I don't need to say anything more than that. I don't think do I think Giuliani's a patriot? Yes. Do I think Barack Obama's a patriot? No, not at all. I don't think he's a patriot. I think if you're a patriot, everything you say uplifts the United States of America. You're a cheerleader for America. You're a cheerleader for the military. You're a cheerleader. And he's not a cheerleader for America. He's a cheerleader for everybody who does not like America, but he's certainly not a cheerleader for America. Do I think Barack Obama is a patriot? Absolutely not.
And as we mention this, and you talk about artful ways to say things, I think back, Michael Reagan, to your dad's campaign for re-election, when Gene Kirkpatrick, a former Democrat, stood up and talked about the San Francisco Democrats being the blame America first crowd. Perhaps that's something that is more mainstream and gets the reflexive notion out there. Be that as it may, Michael Reagan stays with us. We have more discussion specifically about Marie Harf and what those at the State Department have had to say. Stay with us. Joined by our good friend Michael Reagan to continue this conversation. And as always, you can follow Michael on Twitter at Reagan World. So, Michael, you recently penned a column that appears at townhall.com. And you talk about Marie Harf and her suggestion to use jobs as a way to combat ISIS. Is this thinking basically the mantra within the Obama administration?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's within the administration. Look at the meeting he just had at the White House on terrorism. It's all about the economy. We just get the economies right. Remember, this was a president who ran and said, no nation building for me. That's not what we're all about. Well, what was it all about what Mary Harf was saying on the Chris Matthews show? It just, you look at these people and you just sit back and you have to wonder if they do prove, as I say in the article, the Peter principle. I mean, my goodness gracious, wake up and smell the coffee, who these people are. And if you think opening a Costco or a Walmart or a McDonald's in the Middle East and putting these people to work at jobs there is going to change the dynamic, you are just, as you become, the laughing stock of the world.
Michael, you described basically the people that surround the president as D, D, and D. I'm going to let you say it.
Oh, dumb, dumber, and dumbest.
Right.
I mean,
We're not
they
talking about
truly
the
are
sequel.
because they all get on the same page. And I will tell you, it's even Leon Panetta, who's been all over TV. I mean, former Secretary of Defense in the administration thinks this administration is so out of touch, and they truly are out of touch. And look at yesterday. I tweeted something out yesterday. Do you remember the press conference Ronald Reagan had when we went into Libya? No, you don't. Do you remember the press conference he had when he went into Grenada? No, you don't. We just showed up. And what was it yesterday they were announcing? We're going to be training the Iraqis to go take back Mosul, and here's the time frame that we're going to do it, and here's how long it's going to last, and here's when we're going to get out. Who does that?
Well, here's the thing, Michael, in less than 3 minutes that remain, while a lot of people join you in that chorus of dumb, dumber, and dumbest, yet in terms of effectiveness, though this may seem foreign to our philosophy and common sense, this crowd has been pretty effective. They've socialized medicine. They're in the process of getting rid of the borders and allowing in all sorts of illegals via amnesty. So is there a method to the seeming madness? I mean, it's not solely incompetence, is it?
No, it's not incompetence because they're doing exactly what they want to do. I mean, this is what happens when you lose elections. And we lost the presidency. If we want to change things, if we want to change what's going on the border, we want to change Obamacare, we want to make changes, we have to win the presidency of the United States. Because much of this he's done with executive order. And then we had the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court must have been on some kind of medical emergency when he decided to agree with the President of the United States on Obamacare. He had a chance to stop it, John Roberts did, and he blew it. And everybody believes he blew it. Scalia believes he blew it. And now it's going to be back in the courts somewhat. But this has been done by fiat by the President of the United States. And the only way you're going to change it is win the presidency. And you hope the Republicans find a way to work together towards that end in 2016.
Do you believe they will?
Oh, they're going to have to. They're absolutely going to have to. I'll tell you one thing. They're going to have to find their horse and ride it. They're not going to do it if they're going to put 8, 9, or 10 conservatives up and then be surprised when a more moderate member of the party wins the nomination. Because the more moderate member of the party will split the vote with no one. And like in 2012, the 8, 9, or 10 conservatives will all split the vote. Let me just remind you, 1980, Ronald Reagan won the nomination, but he was the only conservative in a sea of moderates and liberals. And he didn't split the vote with anyone and won the nomination.
But
you want to win the nomination? Get a bunch of those conservatives off the plate.
Right. I'm hearing you say that, and we just recently announced the other day that there was a new poll that came out, and you said we need to get more moderates in there. But Huckabee is a conservative, and he's leading right now.
In Iowa.
In Iowa.
Well, no, I mean, you've got that same situation. When you've got members of the Senate, you have sitting governors, ex-governors who in fact want to run, who are all trying to prove they're more conservative than Ronald Reagan. And what happens? They end up splitting the vote. I'd like to see the conservatives find one horse and ride it, and ride that out against Jeb Bush or Chris Christie, and let them fight it out and see who gets the nomination.
Fair enough. Michael Reagan, we thank you for your time. Up next, Vera Gibbons here on America's Forum.